Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here, and thanks to the conference organizers for inviting me to speak. It really is incredibly humbling to be invited to speak at a conference about a technology that I know so many of us have worked on, and I hope that I could do it justice. So just a little intro. My name is Michael Jackson. Yes, that is my real name. You might know me as M. Jackson on GitHub or Twitter or NPM. I work full-time doing training people how to use react.js. I got so excited about React about 6 months ago that I quit my job and I teamed up with Ryan Florence to go and teach people how to use React. Over the past 6 months, we have trained several hundred developers at lots of companies, including Netflix and Apple, PayPal, Visa, Yahoo, and many others. If you are interested in training for your team, come and find us. We'd love to talk to you. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the router, or React router, or as Ryan and I affectionately call it, the router. Sometimes we'll just be like talking about, I don't know, whatever, and then we'll just be out at dinner or something, and then all of a sudden somebody will start talking about the router, and we both know like exactly what we mean. At the first React Conf back in January, we talked about how the router helps you build really, really great user experiences more quickly than ever before. The thing about the router is it really does help you to work faster. But what do we mean by working faster? So let's say you have a React component. We all know what these look like. Say it's your inbox component. And you want it to render when somebody hits the slash on your website. So in the router, you wrap it in a route and give it a path attribute. Now you can link to it just by linking to the slash. Pretty basic, right? Well, what happens when your UI is nested? And you actually, because most of the time when we're building sites, we're building boxes inside of boxes inside of boxes, right? So inevitably what happens is we end up with nested UI. Lots of frameworks give you a way to construct nested UI. For example, you might have used partials in your Rails app. That's a very imperative way of saying, go and fetch that markup and stick it right in here. React Router actually gives you a declarative way to talk about how this UI is structured. So now instead of just a single route, that route actually has children now. In this case, the messages component is now a child of the inbox component, and I can see that nesting right there in my route hierarchy. It also makes it really easy to see the paths that these routes render at. For example, if I see a bug on a page and somebody sends me a bug report, I can take the URL and I can literally go right to my route configuration, and I can see very easily all the components in the hierarchy, all the components that are rendering in order to make that route render. This workflow actually makes it incredibly easy to add new user interfaces to your app, new screens. In fact, after working in this way, I can't actually imagine working in any other way. It forces you to think about URLs as part of your design process. We talked about this a little bit back in January as well, how URLs should actually be part of your design process and not just sort of an afterthought. Why is that important? Good URLs increase trust. You don't want to break the back and forward buttons. There was a really weird period in single-page app history when we were building sites that actually broke the back and forward buttons. And users lost a lot of confidence in us and in the sites that we were building because now their browser didn't work anymore. They also didn't have URLs that they could copy and paste to somebody in a text message or a chat or an email. That's really, really important. That's one of the main things, one of the main advantages of the web is having a URL, and having a location that doesn't change, a place where I can always go and retrieve the exact same data. And so the router ties URLs to your app. Now, instead of just thinking about things moving around on the page, you're actually thinking, how is that change reflected in the URL? The router also gives you transitions. So we're not just interested in declaring what components render, in other words, matching the URL and figuring out the render tree, but what we want to help you do is how you transition between those views. Over time, somebody navigates through your site, and you need to be able to do things like cancel transitions or redirect to different places. You need to be able to do things like replace the current entry in the browser session history. And when you have good control over the browser history, you can develop a much, much richer experience. Let's see an example of what one of these transitions, what one of these looks like. So in this case, we've got a pretty simple route configuration. We've got an app component that wraps two other components. When we're at /login, it renders the login component. At /dashboard, it renders the dashboard component. When we enter the dashboard component, and by the way, this is 1.0 API, which we're working on shipping as soon as we can. We're going to provide this require auth function. It looks a lot like onClick or any of the other event handlers that you're used to. That basically gives us a chance to declare a function that we want to be called when the user navigates to that route. So in this case, if they're not logged in, we say, go and transition to the login page. So we're not just focused on, like I said, matching a URL and actually just rendering the page, but we're focused on how you transition around the app. And this is just one example. There are numerous other examples in the repository on GitHub that show different examples of how you might navigate around in your app. But none of this is actually new stuff. I think we demoed a lot of this stuff back at ReactConf in January. We've come a long, long way since then. We now have over 5,000 stars on GitHub, well over 700 forks. Thank you. And it's been quite a journey. It's been pretty amazing to get to know so many people who are building the router with us. At the same time, we see that large companies who are using React are interested in using the router. We've seen adoption at Apple and Twitter. The new Netflix.com is built using React Router. And they've got some pretty cool interactions there as well. Teams at Airbnb. And there might even be some teams at another company that you might know using the router, we've heard. But this slide doesn't really tell our story very well. Our story is this. Since ReactConf in January, we have merged 689 commits from 96 different contributors. We have closed 595 issues and cut 15 releases. If you are one of these contributors, will you please stand, or if you filed an issue, or if you pushed some code to the repo? I know many of you have. Would you please stand? Thank you. Thank you so much. This really is a community-driven project. When Chris says that this is, the largest project outside Facebook, he's right. It takes a lot of time and effort to maintain it, and it just wouldn't be possible for Ryan and I to do this thing if we didn't have the help of so many incredible people all around the world. So thank you very much for helping us. This really was built by all of us. So let's talk about where we're going from here on out, because the router definitely has some warts that we want to fix in the 1.0 release. First, let's talk a little bit about React. So Ryan and I actually came to React kind of around the same time, and I told that story back in January as well. We were coming from Ember. We were using Ember.js. And when we had been using Ember long enough that we had kind of felt some of the pain that from using it. And so when we saw React, we were just really, really excited. We were really excited about the component model, about the fact that we didn't have to reason about how state changes over time anymore. Probably a lot of the same reasons that a lot of you have been turned on to React. But that's the thing is, when we first built the router, we didn't actually know React. We seriously built the router and shipped version like 0.1 probably about 3 weeks after writing our first line of React code. I think that's more a testament to the awesomeness of React than it is to either Ryan or mine abilities as a developer, frankly. But since we've been using it so much over the last year, we've learned that React really lets us do much, much more than we ever thought was possible. You guys really have pushed us farther than we ever thought we could go. So what can we expect from 1.0? Well, in our trainings, we talk a lot about how a component is pretty much just like a function, more or less. The arguments to that function are your props and state, and then the return value is the user interface. And as you push in new props and state into a component through the top, out comes your UI at the bottom. So what if why can't a router work exactly like this? So instead of generating a router component on demand, why don't we just ship a router component? In this case, what are the props? What are the state? Well, the main one is location. Location is a new primitive that we're introducing in the 1.0 API, which basically encapsulates the idea of where am I and how did I get here. It even encapsulates things like scroll position on the page, so that when you navigate to and from a page, we'll imitate what the browser actually does and return you to the exact same position that you were scrolled at in that page when you navigate back. In general, the 1.0 API is much more explicit instead of magic. And we think that is a huge move forward. It's much more in line with the general React philosophy of passing props explicitly and not expecting magic things to happen for you. But let's explore exactly what I mean by explicit over magic. So this was a 0.13 API. Some of you may be using this API in your apps that you're shipping today. So one thing that we've got here is we've got this state mixin. And the state mixin is used to get props, or essentially to get info from the router, which lives way, way, way higher up in the component hierarchy, possibly much further up. But we don't really need that mixin because we've already got props, right, to our component. So let's say if this was a home page, we could just nix out the mixins, the state mixin. That means we don't need to require it anymore. And instead of having a magic method called this.getParams, let's just use this.props.params. And we'll pass you the params as a prop. Similarly, you'll get the query and the location as a prop. Another prop that you get that's actually really, really important is children in React. Well, in the 0.13 API, we had this thing called route handler. And route handler really was a piece of magic. It basically went on to context, and it looked up where I basically my route depth. In other words, where am I? How deeply nested am I in the route hierarchy? And then based on that, looked up the component class, and then now I know how to render my children. But wouldn't it be a lot nicer if we could just use this.props.children, and then we don't even actually need to require the router in our components at all. Now our component looks a lot more like just any other vanilla React component. And I think it's our kind of better understanding now of how React works that has allowed us to make these changes. Something that's actually a really, really cool side effect of just using children is that it becomes a lot easier to do stuff like animated transitions. At one point, we had people who were using a route handler mix-in just so they could get access to the children and hang on to them because they wanted to animate the transition. So we're fixing that in 1.0, and we're working on providing a better API for animated transitions. Now, why is this so important? Hopefully I don't have to convince you of the importance of animation, but there really was an excellent article written a couple of weeks ago by one of a designer who I follow on Twitter, and I respect her work very much, Sarah Drasner. She says, any animation, like any other facet of the web, it must be designed. We can bake animation into the core of our user experience process to create dazzling, exciting, and engaging work that pushes the boundaries and collectively elevates the medium of the web. Traditionally, URLs and animations are not really very good friends, because if you are doing really smooth animations, you don't actually want to unmount components. You definitely don't want to fetch a new page from the server. So people who have done really, really nice user experiences, who are really interested in that, and we all should be, have kind of don't usually have the best URLs in their apps. But we've already talked about why they're really, really important and why we actually want them. Maybe we can have both. This is a site that I built, or that I'm building with a friend of mine, and it's just a photo browsing site. But you'll notice, I want you to pay attention to the URL bar, and I want you to notice just how the URL updates as the user browses around this site. So we're at a new URL now, but we had a seamless transition between the two pages. Let's pop open the navigation. We'll scroll down a little bit, and we'll navigate to a brand new URL with a seamless user experience. The user still has a URL that they can copy and paste to their friend to see this exact same content. But now they've closed the main navigation. How do we get back? It's a good thing the browser gives us a back button, so we can animate the transitions even when the user is using the back and the forward buttons to navigate. Thank you. This is kind of the pinnacle, I think, of the user experience. This is bringing together really, solid URLs that we can copy and paste, that we can share, that do not change, together with really, really great user experiences. We don't have to sacrifice one to get the other. We're only able to do that because we give you this.props.children, and it becomes a lot more obvious how to animate these things. Everybody knows what children means. Another way that the router, another segment, I guess, of our user base that's really going to benefit from the explicit versus implicit changes in the router are those of you who are doing server-side rendering. In fact, we're doing it ourselves quite a bit. And the 0.13 API, it really isn't very friendly for doing server-side rendering. Those of you who are doing server-side rendering with 0.13, I salute you. You are true pioneers. With 1.0, it becomes a lot easier. because the only thing that you actually need to pass in is your location. So as your location comes in through your HTTP server, you give it to the router, and the router figures it out from there. A brand new feature that we're introducing in 1.0 is something that is actually designed to help out those of you who are building larger sites, like you know, a Facebook or a Twitter. And it's called dynamic routing. Let's take a look at what this actually looks like in practice. Let's see. Good? Okay. So I'm not running, I don't have any tricks up my sleeve. I'm running the exact same code that you can run if you go to our GitHub repo and you download it right now. Maybe not right now because you need Wi-Fi, but okay, so let's see here. Okay, I want to make sure we have a full browser window. Okay, so let's go to localhost 80. Okay, so here we see the React router examples. We've got a new example here that illustrates kind of this new feature that we're talking about. We're calling this our Pinterest style UI. So how many of you how many of you use Pinterest? You're probably actually familiar with this, right? You guys use Pinterest? Yeah, it's okay. Men, don't be afraid to raise your hands. It's not just a women thing. There you go. All right. So, you know, you might be browsing around on Pinterest and you might see a picture of a cute kitten and you're clicking on the kitten. But Pinterest doesn't actually want to take you out of the context of where you were browsing before. You were browsing in your feed before, and now you've clicked on this kitten. So you don't want to be taken to like an entirely new page, because what if you just wanted to go back? That wouldn't be a very nice experience to take you out of context. So when I'm in this context, in other words, when I'm already browsing my feed, I preserve that context as I'm navigating around. Notice I can take this exact same URL, I can pop it into a brand new tab, and now I'm not in the feed anymore. Same URL, different content based on where I'm coming from. So this is actually an interesting use case for sites like this, user-generated content sites. You can basically now you can decide to render something different based on different state other than just what is in the URL. And let me show you kind of what we mean and how we're doing this. So let's pop into the code. I need to watch my time here because we got some really cool other stuff that we want to do. So I'm just going to say the gist of it is right down here. So in my root route, I now, by the way, we're also supporting object literal notation. So those of you who don't like declaring your routes in JSX, you can now just use plain objects. Okay. Yeah, the Facebook team was really excited about that one. Okay. So now we give you a method called getChildRoutes. Now basically, based on the state of the router, you can tell us, well, were they coming from the feed? Okay, then give them the feed version of that route. Otherwise, just give them the plain picture version of that route. And another thing you might be looking at is the callback. Why a callback? Why is this asynchronous? I'm glad you asked. So the truth is that we've been hiding some kind of dirty secrets as we build our web applications. It looks like this. This is the initial page load for a site that will remain anonymous. We're loading over 4 megs of JavaScript, initial page load. This is a site that probably 95% of you use almost every day. This is another site that probably a vast majority of you use. Over 3 megs of JavaScript on the initial page load. Again, this is another site that the vast majority of you use every single day. Over 2 megs of JavaScript on the initial page load. What's going on here? Don't we care about the amount of code that we're shipping? Surely it doesn't take 4 or 3 or 2 megs of JavaScript to render that first page, just to show you one page. Does it? Well, then what's the problem? It could be that it's difficult to think about, right? It's difficult to think about, okay, what JavaScript do I need just for this one page? And then what JavaScript am I going to need just for the next page? And how do I dynamically load that? Or how do I only load the code that I absolutely need for this one page or that one? Because the truth is that our web applications are pretty complex. And when we get past more than just 3 or 4 pages, we quickly lose the ability to think about these dependencies. So what if we could actually, what if we could just load on demand the code that the user actually needs to run a page, though? What if it wasn't so hard to think about? If only we had a tool that knew how to do code splitting for us in a smart way, and then if we had a tool that was smart enough to tell us just what code actually needed to run on a page. Maybe something that could do, I don't know, routing for us. Let's check it out. So we've got another demo in here, and let's see. Again, this isn't anything that you can't use if you don't go, oh, look, the back button works. This isn't anything that you can't run yourself on your laptop right now. Come on. What's going on? Apparently, I can't run it on my laptop right now. Components array of undefined. Haha. Owner-based and parent-based contexts differ. Check out data 2. Ah, excellent. That? Yeah. Well, 1.v1.0.0. Do it fast. Damn it. Pull the tag. Come on, Wi-Fi. Don't let me down now. Oh, this is so depressing. Master, check out master. Ah, yeah, master. Let's check that action out. Huh. Somebody's been committing to the repo. Let's try that. Let's try that. Okay, everybody cross your fingers and your toes and your eyes. All right. Browser. Go. No whammies. Come on. What happened? App load props. Come here, Ryan. Ryan Florence, everybody.
Where's your terminal?
What's going on? So you had a good joke last time at when we were at ReactConf. You said it's the only one that's coming to my mind right now. But you said, "What do you call a fish with no eyes?" Those of you who know it, yeah, okay, you get it, you get it. Come on,
This sucks.
dude. What's going on?
Let's just get rid of it. Why are they props
get rid
in
of
there?
it. I don't know.
Why is it in there? Why is it in there? Here, just go.
This is the bleeding edge.
Get back into Vim.
Dun, dun, dun. Oi. You want me to remove that?
Yeah. No, just open up the code.
Okay. There we are.
Okay, let me. So sorry.
So Ryan, you come to Paris often. It's my first time actually. Really loving it here. Thanks for writing these examples. These are great.
Where's your terminal? Where's your terminal? Let's go back.
Git. Live demo fail.
No. We can get this. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna want to see it. 1 minute.
1 minute. 55, 54, 53, 52. What was that? What was that? Just check out like a. Oh, huge. Grep the log for huge.
Go for it.
Git log. Grep. No. One line. Grep huge. What are you talking about? There it is. 20 seconds. No! Okay.
Restart Webpack.
That's not pretty. All right. Chris is gonna kill me. Come on. Ah!
npm install, and then we're good.
Come on, NPM! Oh, okay. This is the life of an open source project maintainer. You're writing code, you think everything's okay, you're on some weird branch, you get up to talk about it, and it's gone. Hold on. Chris, I promise, I'll get you a bottle of wine after this. We'll go out, it'll be good, it'll be all right. Webpack, go. All right. Come on, Webpack. The stars align. Yes! Demo it, go.
Okay, here we go really fast. Here's my code, here's the example. Look, the routes, what code did we load down here? All these are just like little tiny things. Let's click on the course.
What's gonna happen?
Whoa, where did this code come from? It dynamically loaded. How hard is this to do? Not hard. Get your nerd tree open. Show them the,
hold this.
Show them the route. Show them course route.
Yeah.
Show them course route.
Let's see. Examples.
Huge
apps. Routes.
Course.
Index. Okay, check this out. So get child routes has a callback. Why? Because you might want to load some code dynamically from the server. You can literally load your entire site piecemeal from the server. We've got a little require.ensure in here. This is Webpack that's bundling up some good old code splitting magic for us. And now, until I don't have to load any code to visit a branch of my site before I actually go and visit that site. So come check us out, help us out on GitHub, and thank you so much for your patience. Thank you.